Bring It On is back at it again. We are now into the 7th film of the franchise, but this is not your ordinary cheerleading film. This is Bring It On Cheer or Die. This is a new comedy horror film that is now premiering on VOD. Is this film even worth a watch? Find out my thoughts next. When a cheer squad practices their routines on Halloween weekend in an abandoned school, they are picked off one by an unknown killer. The film stars Carrie Metters, Alden Wilmot, Sierra Holder, Alexandra Beaton, Rudy Borgani, Marlo Zimmerman, Missy Powell, and was directed by Karen Lamb. On Cheer or Die, I saw this film actually popped up about a month ago, actually getting a DVD, straight to DVD release. And I was very intrigued to see how this film would actually turn out, being the fact this is supposed to be a slasher film, and the normal Bring It On films, they're more just about cheer competitions. This is the 7th film in the franchise. I've only seen the first 3, so I haven't seen the last 3 that they actually made. So I can imagine where this actual franchise is at this point. I do really like the first film, and the third film's alright, the second one's alright, but going into this one, I really didn't know what to expect as the fact that it is a slasher film. So the film starts off with this cheerleading squad in a cheer competition, and they have this girl that is trying to do a move. She's at the top doing a pyramid, and she ends up falling and breaking her neck, which you actually don't see on screen, but she ends up dying. The film then cuts to 20 years later, and you are introduced to this cheerleading squad called the Diablos. They really are really bad. Their football team sucks, and they're about to go into the regional cheerleading competition, and the principal doesn't want them to do any kind of crazy moves. Their feet need to be on the ground at all times. So what do the cheerleaders do? They end up renting a bus, and they are going to be trucked to a secret location in an abandoned school, and they're going to practice their moves there so they can be good at this competition. And then, as you can really realize, this is going to be a slasher film. It's a haunted school, I guess you could say. And this is where the film turns out to be a slasher film. Now, the acting in this film, it's pretty bad. I expected the acting to not be very good. And of course, the dialogue, it's not very good as well. But how are the kills? Now, the kills, they could have been a lot better. But the problem is with the fact that this film, it doesn't show any of the kills actually on screen. And the fact that there is no blood, it really does take away from the film. It doesn't really utilize that PG-13 rating. It doesn't even feel like a PG-13 rated movie. It definitely feels like a television kind of movie or like a series type of thing. And a lot of the kills, they happen off screen. So even though they could be creative kills, you don't actually see them. And because of that, it really does make the film feel very flat. Now, I will give a little bit of positives, as when these cheerleaders are actually getting picked apart, they do a little bit of their cheerleading moves, which does tie into the fact that this is a cheerleading movie, but there's not enough of that. And then you also have a decent story as far as to the motivation of the killer and why this person is actually doing what they're doing. So I do give the film's props for that, but I think that they reveal the killer a little bit too early, because the film is an hour and a half and they reveal the killer around about the hour mark, and it gets a little bit stale at that point. And I think by that point I was kind of just like, it just kind of takes a nosedive at that point. And I just felt like it comes to be a little bit ridiculous and kind of stupid at that point. And it's a little bit predictable as to what the killer is actually trying to do. You can definitely see a little bit of what is to come as the film actually progresses. Of course, you have these kids that make stupid choices, why they're all wandering around in a darker kind of school and they don't know this school. It's kind of dumb, but that is to be expected. I will say, though, that was really stupid is the killer was actually keeping track of the different people, like the jock and the nerd, all that kind of stuff, and they were giving them points. I mean, I was thinking, is this Harry Potter? We get 10 points for Gryffindor, 10 points for Hufflepuff. I don't understand why we actually had a point system. It was kind of stupid in that point in the writing aspect of it. I was even laughing at some of the kills. So the first kill, they try to strangle someone with a rope and it looks like they fail. So they end up trying to smother them with a pom-pom, and apparently they get killed that way. I thought that kill was funny. And then there was another kill where this couple, they are on the other side of the hallway and they're looking through a glass and they can see down the hallway somebody is at a door and it has this glass door. And they have this guy that's like screaming for help and he's banging on the door and they're like, oh, he must be having sex. Meanwhile, he's getting axed to death. I thought that was kind of funny. But even during that whole point where he's getting axed to death, you don't see anything. You just know, and it's implied that he's getting axed. So those are the kind of kills that you have in this film. Overall, for me, as far as this film, I think as far as this being a big risk to actually make this a slasher film. I don't think it necessarily will upset the people that like these Bring It On films, but it necessarily isn't scary and you don't actually see the kills on screen. And then add the fact that there really isn't a lot of cheerleading moves, so the people that really like the whole cheerleading aspect, they're going to be a little bit disappointed. And I think even though this film is trying to be a horror film, I don't think the horror community is really going to like this film. So I'm going to give a score of this film a 1.5 out of 5. It just didn't do enough. Has a little bit of story that kind of ties in that was pretty good to a point, but a little bit predictable. But other than that, there really isn't much else to this film, and it's just really not that good. But thank you guys for watching my review, and I'll see you guys on my next review.